What is up, RotoGrinders? Happy Monday. My apologies, a little bit late here. Some tech issues on my end, but if there's anybody worth waiting for, it is one of the greatest DFS players, one of the greatest DFS tournament players of all time. It's Squirrel Patrol, myself, and Squirrel Patrol. Squirrel, shout out to you. I think you took something down in the golf streets this weekend. What was that? There's a golf live final in Scottsdale. Does that sound right?
No, it's actually NFL. So is your show sponsored by FanDuel? It's a DK Live final, but it's a football final, but they're combining it with a golf final. So it's King of the Desert, and there's a 15 golf finalists, 15 NFL finals, and it was one of those play down things, like similar like King of the Beach, where they start with 150, go down to 50, then go to 15. And so I actually did really well in like the first round. I only had 4 entries, got 3 of them through the round of 50. Then got one into the round of 15. But it is like a murderer's row. Like I put this on Twitter. Like Chipotle, Utical, and Papa Gates have 7 of the 15. Hishbu who like won the baseball final in San Diego in August. He's got like an 8th, thing. Then it's like me and like 5 other people. They're just trying to hang on, myself included, and they just try and hang on. So we'll see how it goes. But it'll be NFL Showdown for the Super Bowl.
Are you much of a golf guy? Is that something you participate in as well?
I do. I just started playing a little bit of golf last year. I realized that like I can like get these like satellites, right? I win like satellite tickets for golf. And like so even if I'm not that great of a golf DFS player, and I don't even know if anybody really is like that great of I don't really know how much of an edge there is. But it's kind of a fun DFS sport, right? Like you've got the cut down on Friday, and then you've got Saturday and Sunday, and it
sweats.
Be kind of nice, when it's wrapping up on Sunday. So I just started playing some golf last year.
All right. Again, my apologies for being a few minutes late. Just a 7-game slate. Both slates agreed. They agreed upon dropping off the Sacramento Atlanta game, which it's kind of a bummer because that would have been a lot of fun. Sacramento and Atlanta, I think. By the way, I made a weird bet today, Squirrel. I don't know. I don't know how much you dabble in the sports betting streets. I know we've talked about in the past. A lot of times you do it as like a hedge, like off of like a basically if something it happens that's going to have you lose like $20,000 or $30,000, and for DFS you'll make a live bet against it, or on it, just so you're kind of like it's a hedge. I bet on Sabonis to get a triple double today at like plus 145 or something like that. His projections were, and again, this is not for the main slate, but just kind of popped in my head. Sabonis was projected for a triple double according to our projections. And like he gets the points and boards every game, so you're just betting on 10 plus assists is all you're betting on. And it was funny because like his assist prop was like even money 9.5, and his triple double is like plus 145. I'm like this, I don't know this. Why am I just bet the triple double? He's gonna get the points and boards. Those always happen. So there you go. Just throwing that one out. I'm not sure if that's available everywhere. That was in the Hard Rock app, but I couldn't tell you where else that might be available, but just a little bet for the people. We'll see. Victory lap it later, and if it loses, Squirrel, you never mention it again. You just pretend like it didn't happen. That's how this works, I suppose. All right. No Sacramento, no Atlanta on the main slate. We still have 7 games to play with. We're waiting for Edwards for Minnesota. Certainly an important piece. He's currently questionable, midday downgrade, facing Charlotte. He would be a good play, but if he doesn't play, Minnesota would really, really open up. Your general thoughts as far as a slate? That's kind of the big one, right? The big one we're kind of waiting for. Giannis is officially probable in a rematch versus Detroit. Porzingis is out for Boston. I believe there's 3 teams in the back half of back-to-back. 1 is Boston, 1 is Phoenix, and 1 is Orlando. Charlotte is going to be thin again. Orlando, the back half of back-to-back. They knock some guys out, but nothing terribly important. We'll talk about that game soon enough. And then there's Dallas, who hasn't played since, I think, Wednesday or so because they wanted their games canceled. That was scheduled against Golden State. A really, really well-rested Luka Doncic and company there for Dallas. But give me the overview. What are you looking at? Is Anthony Edwards a potential injury or a rest spot that would really open this slate up?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's really big news. I think, thankfully, we either get the news before lock or there's still about half the slate, starting at that game going on. We got that. The Charlotte-Minnesota game is going to be pretty big. Boston and Dallas, Chicago and Phoenix. Although, I guess Chicago and Phoenix, there's not that many players that are really popping, but it gives you some flexibility. I'm kind of assuming Anthony Edwards is in just because I think it's it's like illness, right? So I feel like they can usually rally unless it's really bad. But thankfully we should still have enough games to work with. It's not like it's some kind of island game. The last game of the slate. I think Xavier Tillman is also questionable, and I think like he's pretty well priced on both sites. So that's somebody also like where we kind of have to wait on the injury news. But it's also we have enough afterwards. Like basically the 3 7:00 games aren't like super appealing. Jaden Ivey looks pretty good. Maybe probably that Milwaukee Detroit game is the most important of the first 3. So it's maybe just play who you want to play from that game, and then just you have to adjust as the night goes on.
I read the expert survey today, as always, and you partook. And it's interesting you mentioned Tillman because I saw Tillman was one of your favorite potential like large field, cheaper players that are worth a look. And I think you also kind of outlined Toronto. It's given away as far as behind the paywall stuff. Toronto, in the absence of Pirtle, they become really, really vulnerable when it comes to yielding rebounds. And with the addition of Quickly, they've been playing a lot faster. I think I'm combining 2 different people. So the Nuggets, it might have been Tim who was talking about the pace of Toronto of late as well, with Quickly joining the team. But yeah, they are a little bit more appealing. They're really vulnerable without Pirtle on the inside, Porter until he gets his fouls, and then there's not much behind him. Thad, Boucher. Rumors of Boucher on the trade block. I don't know who's trading for him, but yeah, I'm sure Toronto would love if they can get anything for him. I'm sure why not? They're not really going anywhere anyway. Anything else we should say as far as the slate, or shall we just dive in and do the old game-by-game deal?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good call to point out that game, because it is a game where that's probably the game where I like taking players from that game the most, because I think both the Memphis guys and the Toronto guys look better than they're priced. And Emmanuel Quickly was like the guy I tagged. I think he's like the best play on the slate. I think he's a different player since getting to Toronto. He's like getting a lot more opportunity, and that team is very different. If you think about everything they've gone through in like the last 3 weeks in terms of like the Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett trade, the Pascal Siakam trade, and Jakob Poeltl's been out for a few games now. It's a much different team than their like season-long statistics would show.
All right, my apologies. Apparently, my audio and my video is still acting kind of funky. I'm going to try to close down some programs. I don't have a lot of stuff open, but not sure what's going on here. Got to give it to, Kevin Roth talks about how he never shuts off his laptop, and I wouldn't say I never do it, but I probably should do it every night as one is supposed to do. How often do you do that, Squirrel? The rules are you're supposed to like close down like a human and just like shut the thing out. I don't. I do like once a week, maybe. That's probably not enough, but more than Roth does it.
Yeah, so it is. Like the audio seems fine. It's like the video is like a little laggy. I get a little thing down here that says like it has like 2 little arrows that are going in certain. It's almost like a recycling symbol or something. But it's like 2 arrows. It's like, oh, I got that. So I just restart like right before. Like I restarted like right before the show because like I saw like, oh, I've got the little thing. I don't want it to like. It used to like just kick you off automatically a little bit. Oh, you're shutting down now to update. I don't want that to happen. So I try to update when I see that thing.
Well, my apologies. Hopefully you all can power on through, and hopefully this won't be an issue. Audio apparently is fine. So that's the most important thing, right? Okay, let's talk about it. The slate, we're going to dive in game by game. First one, it's a rematch. Milwaukee takes on the Pistons, 247.5. That is the total. That is the big boy total for sure. Milwaukee getting more points than Detroit. That's because, well, they're better. And also Detroit officially by Kate Cunningham doubtful. So he's probably not going to play tonight, but I guess he's on his way back soon enough. Cunningham is doubtful. Beef Stew, Isaiah Stewart is questionable. And they also said Monty Morris is doubtful too. Again, I would not expect him to play, but good to see these guys are getting healthier. Maybe Monty Morris gets a couple games in before he gets traded to somebody. Giannis is the only guy on the injury report for Milwaukee. He's officially probable. Every once in a while, Milwaukee does something goofy, that probable stuff, but I assume he is going to play, and I assume Milwaukee is good to go. What are we looking at here as far as Milwaukee and Detroit? Of course, Giannis is spectacular, but he is expensive. We do live in the world of a salary cap. How much are you prioritizing Giannis and the rest of the Bucks here in the nice matchup versus Detroit?
So, yeah, I think they have one of the higher, if not the highest implied point total on the slate. One of the issues, though, is like the huge spread where you don't know how long the Milwaukee starters are going to play. Last time, they played like a couple nights ago.
They played full.
Was that?
They played full. There was no blowout minutes at all. Detroit hung around just enough.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you're hoping for that kind of thing. Giannis, yeah, I put it on the expert survey. I think he's one of my top like contrarian plays. I think you can go there and like in single entry or in large field stock. But in large field, like if you're doing 150 entries or 20 entries, I wouldn't go crazy with Giannis but I don't think he's gonna be that highly owned. So if he's like 5% owned and you've got him at 15% and he does go berserk and I didn't have that game that you need to have, like puts up a triple double, which he came pretty close to last game, then like you're triple the field. So I like playing Giannis. He's like much easier to get to on DraftKings than on FanDuel though. FanDuel's being pretty aggressive, like pricing them up. On FanDuel, I think maybe you want to go like with Chris Middleton or Damian Lillard. And then in terms of like Pistons, the guy I like is Jaden Ivey. Like he's kind of popping on both sides.
Well, yeah, Giannis was fine, but it was Lillard that put, I think, 45 actual points in the bucket. I think it was 16 for 16 from the line, over 70 DK points last game versus Detroit. Certainly you can play Lillard. 74.5. You want to get all technical. It was, let's see, he'll double as well. He dropped it 11 dimes. He was 45 points. There you go, 45 and 11 for Lillard. Talk to me about Ivy on Detroit's. The price has been bumped up, but it's been justified as well. He's currently the most popular player on this Detroit side, and a big number too, 32%. Jaden Ivey against Milwaukee. Alec Burks is the one that is kind of uncomfortable to me. I have a bias against like these veterans that shouldn't be getting any run, but they're still getting any run. They're still getting run. Like, why would he play for Detroit? Doesn't make any sense, but whatever. He's getting run. Talk about the Ivy and the rest of the Pistons.
Yeah, I don't actually know what Detroit's doing now that I think about it. It's like, yeah, I don't know why they're playing these guys. Like, why are they acquiring all these like veteran ex-Wizards? Monte Morris, Danilo, Gallinari, Mike Muscala. I'm thinking they want to flip some of these guys, but I don't know. Anywho, yeah, Jaden Ivey is the guy you want to target. Maybe some Jalen Duren. I don't like Duren necessarily matching up against like Giannis and Brook Lopez as much as like I would normally like Jalen Duren. But yeah, so Jaden Ivey, he's gone over 36 DraftKings points for the last six games in a row, and he's still only like 6,700 on DraftKings. Priced up a little bit more at 7,500 on FanDuel, but like FanDuel, you've got to play 2 point guards, and you've got more salary cap to work with. So again, it's still reasonable price on both sites. And he's the guy. I really don't mind the idea of like if it's like last game where he's like almost 280 some points put up, 276, then you want to combine like Jaden Ivey with Giannis or Jaden Ivey with like Chris Middleton on FanDuel, maybe even some Brook Lopez or Damian Lillard. Like I do a little mini game stack of this game and hope that the game shoots way over. And it's the kind of good game to do that with, because if it stays close, then suddenly the guy's like, oh, if you're getting like full minutes from Giannis, like then suddenly his price tag is not so scary. I kind of like this as a game to do like a little mini game stack of.
We have an if-then set up if Isaiah Stewart doesn't play. Beef Stew currently questionable here for Detroit. I'm trying to see if the big difference is Jalen Duren gets an extra minute. He's currently projected for 30. Would go to 31. And a lot of his minutes are predicated on if he can just stay out of foul trouble. I believe he got in foul trouble in that first game in the first half, if I'm not mistaken. Nobody really getting significant run. All-Star Thompson would get 23. Knox would get 29 minutes. Where's Knox currently projected? He would jump for 9 more, but I don't think you're going to play. I mean, he would have a 19-point projection at 4-5. I don't know if that's – he's not somebody I would want to get to. Sasser would get – no, his minutes wouldn't change at all. Like, that's the thing. Like, why not get these guys some more minutes? Just see what you have, develop your players. But, Detroit doesn't care. They got the Lions. You get the Lions to root for it. It's a fun story there. So who cares about the Pistons? Let them do whatever nonsense they're going to do. You mentioned Giannis, you mentioned Lillard, and you Middleton. Anybody else on Milwaukee or just those three? I'm not sure if Lopez or Beasley, somebody you're looking at all.
I think you could do like a sprinkling of them in multi-entry. Like I'll probably have like a single-digit percentage of Brook Lopez and Malik Beasley. Like they're okay priced. But I mean, like they're probably not going to win you a tournament, right? Like I mean, I guess Malik Beasley every once in a while he'll start sinking 3-pointers, and then I guess he's in play. He's pretty cheap. It's just like Yeah, I mean, looking at his game log, 12.9 FanDuel points, 9.5 FanDuel points, and then 37. So you're hoping for the 37, but I just wouldn't necessarily want to count on it.
You mentioned FanDuel, and some of their price, they are really reactive. I was messing around and trying to make a lineup I liked, and I just ended up not playing. I didn't sign up for anything. But FanDuel sponsors Crunch Time, to be clear. Yeah. They don't sponsor GrindersLive. And by all means, I'm not trying to discourage, but it's just, it's really tricky. And I see the reason why I mentioned it, We Major in chat says, what about Asar on FanDuel? And I'm like, oh, he must be like 4.5 or 4.7. Like Asar Thompson's 5.3. Yeah. Man, what? Can you play that? I guess, but you don't feel good about it. I imagine I wouldn't.
They're maybe overcorrecting a little bit. They used to be pretty bad, and guys would start putting up 30-point games, 30-point FanDuel games, 35-point FanDuel games at minimum price, and they would have them priced there for a week and a half. And it would be like, come on, guy. And that actually got annoying because then it's well, you got to either decide to play this guy or not. But he's still coming off the bench. We don't know. His role seems to be growing. Now it's some guy goes for 30 points, like a Jabari Walker. I think it was Jarris Walker last week. Had one 30-point FanDuel game in 18 minutes. And they're he's 5,500 now. And so I kind of liked him as a sleeper on DraftKings. It was oh, wow, 5,500. I can't play him on FanDuel. So it is almost a little bit of an auto correction, but I think it's better than having way too stale pricing.
For what it's worth, David in chat saying Asar's minutes safer with beef stew out. I did say I was looking at the potential of Stewart sitting, where we would project 2 more minutes for Thompson for 21 to 23 as a median projection as far as minutes. Derek says we seem pretty meh on Alec Burks. That's kind of where I am with Alec Burks. I don't build a ton of lineups. If Alec Burks beats me, so be it. I know he's had a couple of games this year. It's oh man, Alec Burks, look at that, and he can score, right? I just can't get past the fact why is he playing so much? I don't get it, but sometimes he does. Okay. Anything else here as far as Milwaukee, Detroit?
I guess looking at Alec Burks, I didn't realize he'd gone over 30 NBA points 2 of his last 3 games.
Yeah.
But again, he's a much easier DraftKings play. I think at 5,300 or so than on FanDuel at 6,100. I think he's a better DraftKings scorer. Oh yeah, 5,400. 5,400 in small forward eligible. I think I can do that. 6,100 on FanDuel and point guard, shooting guard, a little bit tougher to get to.
We got Bobby in the chat. Bobby Gomes saying thoughts on Sasser. I kind of mentioned him sort of in passing, but the problem with Sasser is just getting on the court. We're only projecting 12 minutes for him. Sure, he can have more. If his game gets out of hand, I would imagine he'd be part of the mop-up duty kind of crew. But it's really fragile. Our projection's 12.5 fantasy points on DK at 12 minutes. He's not even stone in. He's 3.6. You're making 150, give or take, I presume. Is Sasser somebody that even cracks your pool? Is there a sprinkle? Is there a pinch of Sasser?
I think you can go there. I'm not going to have a ton of them. It's 3,600. I'd be much more likely to get to on DraftKings at 3,600. At FanDuel, I think it's 4,100. And I don't love using up a point guard spot on FanDuel on really cheap guys who might not get minutes. DraftKings, if you want to stick him in as a guard at 3,600 or then that's a little bit more manageable.
By the way, Beef Stew is officially in. I missed that note. That dropped 10 minutes ago. So there you go. A little more clutter there in the inside for Detroit. Orlando did drop their starting lineup. Interesting what they did yesterday. They booted out Bataz. Was kicked out the starting lineup and just never got off the bench. He went from a starter to MPC. Is that going to continue today? I don't know. I'm not saying he should play Goga. Just thought it was interesting. And he's been a good defensive player, if nothing else. Bataz, Orlando, a good defensive team. Part of the reason, not fully, of course, but he's been a part of that defense there for the Magic. That is the next game. Orlando is taking on Cleveland. Pretty uneventful from our perspective. At least before fully diving in, 16 total. Orlando is a 3-point home dog here versus the Cavs. They are resting some players. No Markelle Fultz, no Isaac, no Gary Harris. Not a big deal. And Orlando, they have a lot of bodies. They have a lot of guys to fill in. They probably have their rosters a little bit too deep, if anything. But they want to drop Black, Suggs, Wagner, that's Franz, Bencaro, Wendell Carter Jr. drawing to start. And he played, how many minutes did he play yesterday? 34 minutes out of nowhere for Wendell Carter Jr., who he was teetering on 22, 23, 24. 34 minutes for Wendell Carter Jr. yesterday. Now it's the back half of back-to-back. I don't know if that's going to factor in, or are they just going to say, screw it, let's just give him 34 minutes going forward? I think it's the 3rd and 4 nights for him as well. Of course, it's a bad matchup here versus Cleveland, but it's interesting. Why did he get so many minutes? Is that the new normal, or is that kind of a, an outlier there for Wendell Carter Jr.?
Yeah, I don't think we know. So that makes it scary to play him. He's 6,600 on FanDuel, and I think 5,400 on DraftKings. So he's 54 on DraftKings because he's starting again. You have to assume they'd probably do something similar to last game. So that really does put him in play on DraftKings at 5,400. I don't know. I wouldn't argue against him. He might be the best price center we know about right now at 5,400 on DraftKings.
Yes.
So if you want to play him, that's fine. If you want to give yourself some flexibility in terms of some Jaren Jackson, Xavier Tillman stuff going on later tonight, that's probably what I'm going to do more often is say I like Xavier Tillman a little bit better and play, and most of my lineups won't have Wendell Carter.
Well, no surprise, Monty Morris and Kate Cunningham, both listed doubtful, are officially ruled out. Most popular player in this game, according to ownership projections on DraftKings, is Jared Allen, center and center only, 7 o'clock game. If you want to lock some stuff up, 13, 14%, that's not a big number. For what it's worth, our projection team not going to go full 34 minutes for Wendell Carter. We're giving him 30, though. 30 is a pretty hefty number. And if you tell me he's playing 30 minutes, I think I play him. And I guess there's room for more. Again, Gogo Batazzi didn't play yesterday. If that's just going to be the way it's going to be going forward, is he just a bench guy? It just doesn't get off the bench? I don't know. I think there's a chance he just plays again tonight. He's not going to start. He's not going to start his minutes, but he might take some away from Carter. Orlando's one of those tougher rotations, man. It's hard to figure out. But he's getting a 13%, Carter. Joe Ingles at 11%. Get out of town. I don't want that. Cole Anthony benefits a little bit with Fultz being out. Mitchell's one of those studs that typically isn't very well played, and not in this matchup. Is he gonna get much ownership? 5%, just because tough matchup versus Orlando, and people I think are gonna rather play Embiid. They're gonna rather play Giannis. Your thoughts as far as Cleveland? Are you gonna be over that 5% on Donovan Mitchell for the Cavs?
Probably not. I'm just not getting a ton of this game. He's been doing really well, so you'd have to kind of be under the assumption that's going to continue. I'm just not getting there. He's priced up at 9,900 DraftKings. FanDuel, I think, over 10,000 now. Let me confirm that. Yeah, 10,200. That's just a little bit too pricey for me. I don't love this game as a whole. So I'm Cleveland's one of those teams. I'm just not getting to the guys. And 215 total. I just want to save my ammunition and roster spots for later in the night for the most part.
Yeah, and that's also to kind of circle back, a guy like Sasser. Do you want to lock in Sasser? We weren't hot on him anyway, but just sort of you want to lock in a player that's highly questionable at 7 o'clock when some news can really shake the stuff up, and all of a sudden oh man, I played Sasser, so now I can't get to X, Y, and Z that looks spectacular. As general rules, and I think I've heard you talk about this as well, just whenever you need a tiebreaker, just go for the backload. It doesn't have to change. It's not going to get better, but at least there's a chance that players and just the slate can change. You want to give yourself some flexibility, some versatility. Anything coming along here on the old Twitter injury wise? I'm getting notifications. That's why. Giannis is available to play. Okay, yeah, according to the Twitter streets, he's got a shoulder, but he's expected to play. Giannis Antetokounmpo, good to go. That is 2 of the 3. I think there's 3 7 o'clock games, right? Yeah. The third game at 7 o'clock is a game. It's going to be tough to not play anybody. 236.5 is the total. Philadelphia is a 14-point favorite versus the Spurs. Is this our first ever meeting of Wembanyama and Embiid? I meant to check that. I feel like it is in my head, but maybe it's not. But Embiid, just crushes the world. Wembanyama, his minutes, by the way, they've been bumped up. And we're looking at 27 now. He's off the 24. 27 is basically what they will allot him. Still really, really hard to pay his asking price because he just has to smash so much in those 27 minutes. He certainly can. But Embiid versus Spurs, We know the matchup is spectacular. One of the top plays on the slate. How do you feel about Embiid, the Sixers versus San Antonio?
Yeah, the 14-point spread's a little scary. But especially on DraftKings, like Embiid is, pretty easy to get to. Wembanyama, a little bit more of a tournament play. I'm like Tyrese Maxey seems better priced on FanDuel. Joel Embiid seems better priced on DraftKings. So I'm just going to play it that way, playing on both sites. Then, and if it's a big Tyrese Maxey game, then I'm probably going to do a little bit better on FanDuel. If it's a big Joel Embiid game, I'm probably going to do a little bit better on DraftKings. But I don't know. I feel like I should be running it back with some Spurs. As of right now, I'm not. I think Philadelphia missing a couple guys too. I think Patrick Beverley and Jaden Springer are out now.
Marcus Morris as well, and Mo Bamba. Melton's been out for a while.
Yeah, so that probably doesn't have a huge impact. Maybe give a little bit of a bump up to Tyrese Maxey. Although Patrick Beverley, I guess, has been playing some significant minutes, so somebody's gonna have to fill those, and it might go a little bit towards Tyrese Maxey. Maybe a little bit of benefit to some Kelly Oubre. I'm not sure who would benefit there with Patrick Beverley out. There's got to be somebody then playing those guard minutes.
Oubre's got a good FanDuel price, and that's hard to say about anybody who's got a FanDuel price. So I think his price over there is pretty good, and I think he's going to be popular. How do you feel about popular Kelly Oubre on FanDuel?
He just never seems to go berserk, but I mean the Spurs are a pretty good matchup. He's under 21 FanDuel points 4 of his last 5 games. 5,400. He probably will get a little bit of a boost with Beverly out. I don't love it, but it is a good matchup. And he's not somebody like Embiid. I'd be a little bit worried they're going to limit his minutes a little bit if the game gets out of hand. 14-point spread. Kelly Oubre maybe a little bit more likely to be out there in the fourth quarter, even in a game that's not particularly close.
Yeah, you try to think, let's see, Maxey, Oubre, Harris, Batum, Embiid, and who on that bench would close if this game was close, right? Almost definitely not Reed, very likely not House, Korkmaz, almost definitely not, KG Martin, no. Ricky Council the fourth? What? Ricky Council the fourth? I'm not aware of any of the Ricky Councils, to be fair. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm sure he's spectacular at basketball, but that is a person allegedly that he'll be wearing a uniform for the 76ers tonight. So they're really thin is the point that we're talking about. Their bench is Reed, House, Korkmaz, KJ Martin, Smith. There's not much going on there. So if this game is close, this could be an interesting game stack, but like San Antonio, good luck to keep it close. Zach Collins, by the way, officially questionable with his ankle for San Antonio. Not sure if he's going to go or not, but man. What do you got?
He's officially in.
Oh, did that just happen? Did I miss it?
It just happened, yeah.
Okay, right on cue. There we go. Zach Collins, good to go. Yeah, I knew Philadelphia was missing players and all that, but I didn't realize how quickly it falls off as far as their bench. And by the way, Oubre is not going to be terribly popular in FanDuel. I thought he would be. I was kind of messing around with some stuff earlier. He just kind of worked. And, the shooting guard, small forward eligibility, only 7%. 7% ownership currently, according to our projections. But yeah, I think we're gonna. And Nurse loves. He's in that Thibodeau plan. He goes to the Tom Thibodeau school of delegating out minutes. He is perfectly fine playing his players 37, 30, 38 minutes if necessary. I like Philly going into the show, and then I just didn't realize. I knew that they had those questionable players, but how quickly those minutes are going to get condensed. 38 for Maxey, 35 Harris, 34 Embiid. Oubre and Batum 28 apiece. I have a hard time playing those guys. We are giving House 22 off the bench, 22 minutes. Korkmaz 17. Okay. Actually go ahead.
Now that I'm looking at it, maybe Firkin Korkmaz is a play. He's min price, 3,500 small forward on FanDuel.
Not crazy.
Yeah, 3,000 flat min on DraftKings shooting guard. I think there have been crazier things. I don't love that it's the first game, but he's a shooter. And it's San Antonio game, and you would not be worried about things getting out of hand with Korkmaz. And he just seems like a garbage time kind of guy, right? This is his kind of game where they're just going to let him shoot. If it, they might be up by 30 in the fourth quarter. And yeah, all right, we're gonna play Korkmaz the entire fourth quarter. And he's just gonna be shooting 3-pointers. And if they go in at absolute minimum price, maybe that's a score you're happy with.
I'm looking at our minute projection stuff, and it's funny. They're actually projecting. We're projecting 4 minutes for Ricky Council the fourth, 1 minute for each. Smith getting 10, KJ Martin getting 10, Reed getting 14, Korkmaz getting 17, and House getting 22. House at 3-7. Like, all these guys, obviously not great fantasy point minute players. Well, I shouldn't say that. Reed's a good one, but his run is just really unexpected as far as his chances of getting in the court is blocked by Embiid. House 0.56 in the season, Korkmaz 0.61. Who, if this game is blowout, right? There's 6 guys on the bench: Reed, House, Korkmaz, Martin, Smith, and Council the fourth. Who's not mopping up out of those? It's either not. It's probably Korkmaz, House, or Reed, right? Like, who's not a part of the full mop up crew? That's what I'm asking.
So last game, Oubre was in there in the final minute. It looks like, with Korkmaz, Council, Martin, and Smith. So it was Reed that was not in the game in the last couple of minutes. Okay. I don't know if he fouled out because that's always a possibility. But I assume not. I assume it was just mop up duty. So yeah, I think it would probably be Reed, like not closing. I don't know if I'm looking at the last game or the game before that. But yeah, I think it would be. Then that maybe leads us a little bit more towards Oubre.
If you were throwing a dart at a guy like Korkmaz, are you putting a rule in, like, I'm not playing Wembanyama, or I'm not playing Embiid and Maxey? Like, you're maxing one of, like, because you want the ceiling of this game to blow out, right? A little bit. Like, Korkmaz is going to get some run as is. Are you adding any rules, basically, as far as if you're playing any of these guys, like a KJ Martin or House or a Korkmaz? Are you adding any rules to, like, maybe not have too much of the starters, because the hope is you get a little bit of the back end from these guys?
Probably not, because he's minimum priced. So, like, he doesn't have to do a lot. Like, if he gets 19 on FanDuel, 3,500 small forward, I'm probably pretty happy with that. And then who knows what Embiid or Maxey did. And I wouldn't be playing so much Korkmaz where it's like, you're gonna be like messing up the rest of my lineups, right? My other like 140 lineups or something like that. So, like, if I'm playing like 10 Korkmaz lineups out of 150 and a couple of them have Embiid or Maxey, I think that's fine. It wouldn't necessarily be something where I like have to set like a dead set rule against it.
All right. Anything else, or moving on?
Yeah, I think we can move on.
That is it for the 7 o'clock games. There are still 4 games left to go. Again, the last game, Atlanta and Sacramento, that has kicked off the main slate. Probably a fun showdown slate if you want to chase some money if things are not going well in the initial slate. Memphis, speaking of things not going well, the Grizzlies, an absolutely lost season for them, taking on Toronto. 225 is the total. Toronto, 7-point favorite here versus the Grizz. Memphis, anybody that's good is not playing, essentially. You guys know the deal. Bane, Smart, Ja, Clark, Tillman. Tillman's kind of the big one, is questionable right now. For Toronto, the only injury they have is Jakob Poeltl, big hole there in the center. We are getting some value plays on Memphis in Luke Kennard. Somebody looks pretty interesting. And Triple J, Jaren Jackson's one of those deals where he always looks good, like math-wise, when everybody else is out. But he has variance-wise. Like, he feels like his ceiling to floor is greater than most other players for a variety of reasons. But blowout, he's just like a volatile player. Sometimes he scores 25 points. Sometimes he scores 10. Sometimes he gets a stock. Sometimes he doesn't. But math-wise, he looks pretty good here versus Toronto. We talked about it earlier in the show about how Toronto is playing faster and with the addition of Quickly. Oh, look at that. And, of course, they've been grabbing less rebounds with the absence of Poeltl. So this is kind of a sneaky, interesting game, Memphis and Toronto.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is a game I'm getting a ton of. The injury news is a little bit of a question. Like, there is Xavier Tillman. I'm assuming Tillman is in right now, and because I think there's enough going on that you can adjust like pretty easily if Tillman's out. Like Santi Aldama will probably get a little bit of a boost, and he's a little bit cheaper on DraftKings. I think at about the same the same positions. I guess both FanDuel and DraftKings. You could drop from Tillman to Aldama if you wanted to, but there's still like other games to go later in the night. So like if I'm assuming Tillman is in, if Tillman ends up out and we did, after lock, then there's enough to like swap around with. I'm getting a bunch of like Jaren Jackson as well. Getting a bunch of Luke Kennard, getting a lot of Emmanuel quickly, getting Scotty Barnes. I kind of like Scotty Barnes in this spot. RJ Barrett. Like you take these Toronto guys and you basically take like Jakob Pearl out and Pascal Siakam out, and now they're just running up and down the floor, which is great. Like that's what we want. Is it? We just want these guys running up and down the floor, like fast break points. So yeah, I'm getting a lot of this game. I think everyone's kind of underpriced for the current like environment of the game.
Can you do like a power rankings here? Can you prioritize your Raptors for me?
Sure. So I think it's quickly out in front. Like I think he should be more expensive. Like he's a player that's going to be more expensive if he stays healthy, for the next in a month, because he keeps putting up points and his price has already gone up 2,000 or so. So if you look, on both sides, so if you look at him, it's like, oh, he's way too expensive. No, he might still be too cheap. So I quickly is first, probably like Scotty Barnes after that. Again, like he's a really talented NBA player, and if suddenly the team is playing faster, like that's great. He's like only 8,200 on DraftKings, 8,900 on FanDuel. Probably not going to be like in the majority of my lineups, but I'll be playing like a healthy percentage of them. And because I'm getting so many Memphis guys naturally, I like the idea of being overweight the Toronto guys and just hoping this game does maybe go over the total, maybe goes into overtime or whatever. And then suddenly you've got like game stacks of this game that are like going to the top of the leaderboards.
35 minutes projected for Barnes, 15% ownership projection as well. Quickly going to be fairly popular as well on DK, 22%, Barrett at 17%, Trent at 10%, Schroeder not getting any ownership coming off the bench. I assume he's coming off the bench. That's the way it's been. Your thoughts on Bruce Brown? He's just sort of like, it's just as a holding pattern. They're going to move him, right? I assume he's going to move on at some point. He's just going to chill him for a couple weeks, and it's like they don't know what to do with him. I don't think we're playing him, but he's there. We're probably playing 25 minutes or so. Is that the general read here?
Yeah, I think he's too expensive, and I'm worried like that there just isn't upside for the minutes because he's coming from being a starter in Indiana, and he's still about the same price. But now instead of like starting and playing, like having the possibility of playing like minutes into the 30s or 28 minutes, he's coming off the bench, and his minutes are probably limited in the lower to mid 20s. And they don't want him to get hurt because they're probably about to trade him. So, they've got this like multi-million-dollar asset that they're about to try to move to somebody else. They probably don't want to be playing him. Like if this game goes to overtime, I don't know. They're probably not going to be playing him extended minutes.
So you said you're playing this game or you're making your lineups as if Tillman is in. We do have an if-then set up for if he's out. Jaren Jackson would really, really jump off the page. He already looks pretty good, but all of a sudden he would have a 33-minute projection, almost a 47 DK and FanDuel median projection, which is really, really good, obviously. Santi Aldama, I think we get the biggest bump here. The 30 minutes, almost a 30 DK point projection, 28 on FanDuel. I think he would become kind of a super value. I should know what his price is offhand. 5K on DK. What is Aldama on FanDuel? Probably something silly. 5.9, not silly, but is that the guy? Like if you're scrambling, if we happen to see Tillman not play, is Aldama one of the guys you're going to be getting to a good bit?
I think so, and just because of the positionality, that's like the same as Tillman's, and then you get a few $100, $400 or so dollars from Tillman to Aldama. And then that's like enough that like if it gives you a swap up, that's great. But it's also like you can just leave that, and I'm not going to feel like I shouldn't have assumed Tillman in. And we may get news by lock anyway. But if not, I'm going to assume Tillman in and just be swapping to some amount of Santi Aldama afterwards.
Yeah, I think Tillman is a really awesome play if he does go. And I guess you probably want that news to come out after 7:00. If you're sitting there with a bunch of Tillman, you want him to be rolled in like at 7:01 or I guess 7:25 or whatever, just so you have enough time. Who knows when we'll get that news? But you probably want people to lock some stuff up. kill some flexibility. If, some people are probably afraid to play him right now with questionable stuff. He's currently 18% projected owned on DK. Triple J at 22%. Kennard at 10, which I think, depending on like what kind of other values out there, might go up, might go down. And Conchar at 13% to me is really uncomfortable. Yeah. Does he get better? He's got to get better if we happen to see Tillman out. But even still, do you want to play John Conchar? Probably not a lot of him, right? I wouldn't think so.
I'm getting some John Conchar, like less than 10% on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's a little bit cheaper, 4,100 on FanDuel compared to, what was he? 3,900 on DraftKings. But on FanDuel, you kind of need the savings, and he's small forward eligible. Yeah, I don't want to be playing like that much John Conchar. I'd probably rather take some of that and spend it on Furkan Korkmaz. and like that's one of the things. Like I'd probably want to play some Korkmaz because like I don't know, like John Conchar seems to have pretty big like bust potential. Yeah, but he can put up some good games sometimes. So he might just be a guy that like makes the rest of your lineup fit. Yeah, I'm going to be playing a lot of Conchar on FanDuel, and I'm not that happy about it.
Do you remember where your stand was on Gigi Jackson, Gregory Jackson chalk night? That was a weird one. I fell for it mostly. I got suckered in. He's kind of falling back now, but yeah.
I swapped my lineups that had Gregory Jackson that were already like kind of out of it. I swapped them off of Gregory Jackson. And those lineups still didn't do well, but it made me feel smart. It made me feel like, well, I did the right thing, But yeah, it didn't go well. So
yeah, I'm trying to see. He would get a 21-minute projection if Tillman's not playing. Currently, he's projected for 14 minutes. So, and he's no longer in the threes; he's in the fours. But yeah, just what a big whiff by me. But I guess a lot of people, I suppose, played him a fair bit that night. Let's move on. There's 3 games to go. We got crunch time coming in about 20 minutes or so, right? 25 minutes. Kevin Roth, you got Keith Eyster, you got Taylor Smith taking y'all straight up to lock. Do that like button. If you guys are hanging out in chat, kindly, please, just take a second, hit the like button, caress it, whatever your absolute choice happens to be. Turn the thumb up. Do subscribe. Turn on notifications so you know when we go live and we talk some daily fantasy. We're going to do it, every day anyway, but just in case you forget. We have the Hornets taking on the T-Wolves. No news just yet as far as Anthony Edwards. The news as of right now is he's currently questionable, taking on the Hornets. Mike Conley is already out. He's resting because they don't really need him against the Hornets. The Hornets have LaMelo Ball with his ankle. He's officially probable with his ankle. Nick Richards is doubtful with his ankle. Cody Martin's got a knee, so he's questionable. And then, Gordon Hayward, Mark Williams, nothing new there. Those guys are out. They've been out. But, Minnesota, awesome matchup here for Charlotte, as long as Charlotte sticks around. That will be even better. More minutes here for guys like Cat and Gobert. Alexander Walker all of a sudden is going to be a pretty popular play in this slate. Is that something you're comfortable with? Are you leaning in on the old Alexander Walker chalk? Currently 62% ownership on TK. He is only 3.5. So it's like, how bad does it have to go for this to really blow up in your face? He's in the 4s on FanDuel, 4-4. We should start there with Alexander Walker, 62%. Do we like that?
So you've got to play 2 small forwards on FanDuel, and we're talking about a lot of John Conchar and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I prefer Alexander Walker to Conchar. I'd rather find the $300 and spend it up on that. His minutes, he's going to be in the game. He's going to be in the game against Charlotte. That's a pretty decent matchup. He's probably going to be playing 20 minutes. If Anthony Edwards then is out, then suddenly that's a lot of usage. I don't know. It's going to be one of those plays that you probably have to play a ton of them, and it either works out or it doesn't. I would be leaning more into playing him and just knowing that if he doesn't do well, it's going to blow up, but it's going to blow up a lot of other people's lineups too. And I'm assuming Edwards is in, but if Edwards is out, then and Karl Anthony Towns become pretty good plays. And I guess Kyle Anderson as well. I'm going to be playing a pretty decent amount of these guys anyway. And then if Edwards is out, then, even better.
So on our if-then setup, if we happen to get Edwards to sit, and it's a game that probably don't need him, and there's really no way of gauging, right? He's not feeling well. We don't know how you felt like you've been like, I don't feel great right now. And sometimes you feel miserable and sometimes you just don't feel very good. There's different degrees of feeling terrible. And we can't gauge this. We have no clue. But as far as DK values, even FanDuel values, Troy Brown will become a huge value. If we happen to see Edwards sitting out, he would jump up about 27 DK point projection, 26 minutes. Cat looks good as is, but get even better. We know Charlotte is terrible. Well, they're bad just in general. They're really vulnerable inside, especially if they're without Richards, which would make them even worse. It's not good. It's a really, really good matchup here. Richards, by the way, officially doubtful, so we're projecting Washington to start. PJ Washington and Miles Bridges taking on Cat and Gobert. That just feels, as far as size and length and girth, do the whole thing. It just feels like Cat and Gobert are going to be able to do their thing inside for sure. I just love all those Minnesota pieces. And I think Nas Reed, I thought he was going to be kind of sort of somewhat sneaky, but I guess he's not. Currently ownership stuff right now, Reed is 11% on DK. And again, all this stuff would change. It would get even better if Edwards happens to sit out. Gobert, 14%. We're giving Edwards 15% for what it's worth. And Slobo's already getting ownership, Squirrel. 36% for Kyle Anderson. He's 3-7. I don't like buying Kyle Anderson as much as the next guy, but, he's one of those guys that can get you like 7, 6, 4, 2, 1. Doesn't do one thing. There's like a little bit of everything. It just kind of ekes his way to 24 fantasy points, which is usable at 3-7. Yeah. Let's have that conversation. And how much Minnesota is too much Minnesota, I guess, if we happen to get Edwards out.
So, Kyle Anderson's 5,100 on FanDuel, and that's not that appealing. At 3,700, though, he's definitely in play on DraftKings. If Edwards is out, I'm going to be getting a ton of Minnesota guys. I guess power ranking it, it's probably Nickeil Alexander-Walker first, then Kyle Anderson, especially on DraftKings. I guess on FanDuel, my second Minnesota piece would probably be Karl Anthony Towns. After that, I think Nas Reed on DraftKings looks pretty good. And that would be like Jaden McDaniels on FanDuel. I don't know. I'm not getting to Charlotte at all. And that's probably an indication of the spread, the matchup, the total, just not getting there at all. But there's going to be some stuff opening up if Anthony Edwards is sitting for the Minnesota guys.
Charlotte will play a tight rotation if this game is close, I think. But, banking on it being close, you got to tell a story in your lineup. But Bridges, we're giving 36 minutes. There's a chance he plays 37, 38. We've seen him play 39. Rozier, 34. Washington, 32. Ball, 31. Not much how much more they'll give Ball just because of his injury history. Miller, 30. Martin, 24, but he's currently questionable as well. Worth noting, again, in the rundown of things that might be interesting if Edwards is out, Troy Brown is currently only projected for 8 minutes, but he's stone mid on DK. He's 3K, and he's 3.6 on FanDuel, which is essentially the minimum. He would jump from an 8-minute projection, so I believe he would take the most, 24, 25 minutes. Yeah, a 26-minute projection. He would be the best 3K play on the slate, I think, Troy Brown. So there's a lot of pieces, and optimizers, I would say, depending on what everything else says, would probably give you 4 T-Wolves on this slate if we happen to lose Edwards. But I don't want to talk too much about the if stuff, and Crunch Time can handle it, or just Lineup HQ can handle it, into the slate if that news drops later. Anything else you got as far as Charlotte, Minnesota?
I don't think so. I don't love the Troy Brown play. He just doesn't put a point. He had some starts in December where he's and he's playing pretty big minutes and still putting up 15 points. I might be able to get my 15 points for Furkan Korkmaz. First game of the night. Also at Stone Min. I don't know. I would probably end up with some Troy Brown if Anthony Edwards is out. I don't love it. And I'm still going to be sitting there thinking wish I'd played Korkmaz.
I think I would play Brown as well. Not thrilled about it. His fantasy points per minute in the season, like not terrible, 0.79. Usage about 16%. Of course, it'll be a little different depending on who he's playing with the iteration, but how bad would it have to go for like a 3K player just to completely blow up in your face here? And I think he would have a path to some blowout stuff if it got that way as well. But yeah. Troy Brown versus Korkmaz is a fun question, but Korkmaz, you're locking up early,
Yeah.
And so it might be a tiebreaker, but also Troy Brown just might never be a thing. Korkmaz has a better chance of being a thing depending on news. Okay. 8:30. We got the Celtics taking on the Mavericks. 2 games left, by the way. Any questions in chat, by all means, throw them out there as well. Interactive show. We want to have you guys partake. Whatever's on your mind. I've seen some passing on through. If it's relevant to the conversation, even better. But TJ in chat says, find someone to love you the way Squirrel loves Berkman Korkmaz. Did he win you like $1 million or $100K? Is there a reason why?
No, actually, he wasn't on my radar until we were doing the show and talking about like Pat Bev being out and like somebody's got to like play those minutes and somebody's got to close. I am just kind of being a little bit facetious with the Korkmaz thing. Like he is there's always like a minimum priced guy that can go a little bit crazy and suddenly that's like a winning lineup. And I'd rather try to get that guy at lower ownership than at higher ownership. And I'd rather do it with like a guy that might just be playing blowout run, taking a ton of 3-pointers. Whereas like Troy Brown, I could see him playing blowout run and just passing the ball. And we don't get points for that. Like, just passing the ball around, not as an assist or anything like that. So like I'd lean more towards the Korkmaz than the Troy Brown.
Yeah, and if he put 20 points in the bucket, he's absolutely the kind of guy, like you said, that like he can be a DNP CD for like 7 games in a row, and if they dust him off, he can put like 20 points in the bucket. It's like, where'd that come from?
Yeah,
he's absolutely that guy. All right, Boston versus Dallas. Let's see, as far as who's in and who's out. Holiday is not on the injury report. He had an elbow. Porzingis has a knee, so he's not playing basketball tonight for Boston. Nothing really new with Dallas. No Seth Curry. No Dante Exum. But, pretty fun game here in Dallas. 240 is the total. Pretty high as well. 240. And Boston just a 3-point favorite here versus the Mavericks. A well-rested Dallas team taking on Boston. Luka, probably not the best matchup in the world. You don't really want to mess at Boston, but, Luka is essentially matchup proof. Revenge game for Kyrie Irving. Sure, if that does anything for you as well. And I believe it was Derek White who's like the biggest benefactor if you fire up the old court IQ stuff when Porzingis is out when it comes to increases in usage. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. I did not run it right now, but I thought I read that in one of the content pieces earlier today. But, Boston and Dallas, start wherever you want to start.
So is this a national TV game or is it
NBA TV doubleheader on Monday nights. So I think this might be one of the two. San Antonio, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Sacramento are the NBA TV games. So, And is that even national TV? NBA TV? Fringes. Does everybody have NBA TV? Not. It's not TNT. It's not ESPN.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, not really. No, it's definitely not.
I'm not getting a bunch of this game with optimizers. Like a little bit of Derek White on DraftKings, a little bit of Al Horford on FanDuel. You could eventually keep running lineups. You get some Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I don't mind the idea of like playing Tatum or Brown in a handful of lineups out of 150, pairing them with like a Dallas piece, probably Luka, and just like filling it in with with other with value pieces, and hoping that the game either rises and lifts like your big expensive pieces there, or it's just a lineup that's not going to cash. I do think like the Boston guys aren't going to see a ton of ownership, but any one of them can kind of go berserk. So like if I can play like 10% Jaylen Brown or and be double the field, like then that's something I have some interest in. Because he can put up points. So it's kind of a GPP game, but I like the idea of being over the field. But because optimizers aren't going to go there. If you're playing like 10% of these guys, you're probably over the field.
Yeah, if our ownership is even like remotely correct, Luka is 7%.
Yeah.
I just think you're supposed to get over that. Like that just seems. I know the matchup's not spectacular. I know it's not Luka without Kyrie. Right? Kyrie's still there, but I mean, that's too low. If you're running a bunch of stuff for me, I think you got to get like at least double that. And you mentioned if you're running a Boston guy, right, run it back with somebody in Dallas, most likely Luka. Would you have the inverse of that? If you're running Luka, do you have to run back a Boston piece or not necessarily?
Not necessarily, but I like the idea. Like if I'm playing 10% Luka, maybe I do want, half of those to have a Boston piece. I like the idea of being over the field on Luka. Like, because he's expensive. 11-2 is expensive. Like if he puts up a 30-point triple-double and it's like 70 points, which we know he can do, then maybe you're wishing you played some Luka. So I like the idea of being over the field.
Does he outscore Embiid? Does he outscore Giannis Antetokounmpo? I know it's different position stuff, obviously, but that's kind of who he has to beat when it comes to salary. Can you rank your interest in those three players individually? Embiid, Giannis, and Luka.
It's probably in that order, and that's like kind of the order that they're projected in.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Chad's talking about Grant Williams' revenge, by the way. I don't know how vengeful he's. It's been a rough season for Grant Williams. I don't think I can get behind that one, but just sort of figure I'd acknowledge that. Boston, Dallas. Should be kind of a fun game to watch. It is, like you said, not getting a ton of ownership at all. Derek White, the most popular play at 17%. Tatum at 12. You can always play Tatum. But Jason, by the way, Jason Garnett in chat saying, how about fading all the big names and going mid-tier? Is that something you've considered? Maybe not playing. I don't know where the cutoff would be. But I guess that means like not playing Embiid, Giannis, Luka, probably Mitchell, Booker, Tatum. Anybody like below like your highest price player, like around 9K or so? How do you feel about a mid-tier build today?
Well, I think that's what you're going to get pretty naturally. Like if you start running optimizers, unless we start to get some injury news, and I haven't really adjusted things for Patrick Beverley being out. But unless that dramatically changes things, I think you're going to end up with a mid-range build. Like you're going to end up with like some Jaren Jackson, Chris Middleton, Emmanuel quickly kind of lineup, some Jaden Ivey, and then you're not really spending up. So like I'm thinking like when I say like I want to be over the field on Giannis, then that means like I don't think he's going to be that highly played. Like I think we've got Luka at 7% ownership. Like I want to play like maybe 15% and be double the field, and I'm taking some chances on some really risky value plays. But I think a mid-range build is going to be what most people are going to.
Just ran 99 optimal lineups on DK. The most popular player, no surprise right now, is Alexander Walker hitting 68%. To be clear, I cap it at 68%, so he hit the cap. Jaden Ivey, who you talked about before, he's the second most popular guy. Then Kyle Anderson, who we don't love, but he works salary-wise, and Minnesota being thin in the matchup, and it could get even better. Triple J, Joel Embiid is the next guy. He's the first like real big spend, coming in at 34%, and then quickly at 27%. And your guy Tillman at 26%, which is kind of surprising. I thought people would be a little bit off him. But Alec Burks, by the way, 25% Alec Burks. I hope that doesn't work out. I don't think I'm going to play him, but that's just kind of sort of where I am at right now. Anything else we should say as far as Boston and Dallas, or shall we talk about the hammer? That is Chicago and Phoenix. The hammer, unfortunately, is not Sacramento and Atlanta. And yet Devin is asking me why 99 lineups. I don't know. I like odd numbers, so I don't want to put in 100. Sometimes I'll put like 111, just keep it in the one, and then just hit enter. But yeah, I don't know. I just it's you ever pump gas? You pump gas before scroll. I like to end on an odd number. Is that weird? Is that strange?
Yeah, it's a little weird. I just stop when the thing shuts off.
Yeah, I mean, it's a harmless thing. It's nonsense. I don't know why. And like I gotta top it off, and it's like a little baby pump because I'm trying to get pennies here, right? But it's a weird little If that's my worst idiosyncrasy, I suppose it could be worse. But all right, let's talk about the hammer. We got about 5-10 minutes or so until Roth jumps on. We have the Bulls taking on Phoenix, and yes, I know you pumped gas before, unless you're like in the state of New Jersey or something like that.
Yeah,
I think isn't New Jersey and maybe Oregon. I think New Jersey and Oregon, like you're not allowed to pump your own gas to keep. I think it's to keep jobs. I think that's the reason.
Yeah, so it's shocking to me when I first pulled into a gas station in Jersey, right? Like I'm on the turnpike or whatever, and pull over to rest stop and go to pump my gas. And somebody comes waving out. I'm like, no, yeah, like let me do this. Like, oh, okay.
Do you tip that guy? Is that built in? I don't know. What's the rules there? Are you supposed to tip that guy? What's the etiquette there?
Yeah. I don't remember if I did. I don't think I tipped him. I don't, because it's like that's what he's there for.
Yeah,
like, that's what I think the rule I generally try to use. Like unless he's like really helping you out, like he's like helping tow your car or something, right? Then yeah, I don't think you tipped him.
It gives you the whole the full tire rotation. Put some scrubs down the windows, put some air in your tires. Okay, we have Grayson Allen, who is in an awesome matchup here. This is the perfect Grayson Allen matchup. The Bulls get more made threes than any other team in the league. I guess they're tied technically with, I believe, the Lakers. That's what Grayson Allen's done. He makes his threes. Grayson Allen's questionable with a knee. Eric Gordon's got a wrist. He's questionable. Bull. He's got a big foot. That's going to keep him out of playing basketball tonight. As far as the Bulls, Patrick Williams could be good to go with his ankle. Levine's going to be out for a while with his ankle. No Torrey Craig. And Drummond is available. I think we have an if-then setup for this for Phoenix, and they're in the back half, right? Yeah, this is the back half of back-to-back for Phoenix. I'm not sure if that's the reason why they're giving Q-tags here, but it's possible they can be really thin as far as their guards. So Grayson Allen, Eric Gordon. I was thinking Beal would be, just maybe Beal gets a little bit more, a couple more shots. We're getting like guys, wings like KBD and Okogie that are not particularly exciting, but I guess those guys would be theoretically playable if both Allen and Gordon are out. What's your read as far as the Suns here versus the Bulls?
I was kind of assuming that Allen and Gordon were going to be in. I'm probably not playing enough of them that I need to really think about like the late swaps. I'm just not getting a ton of Phoenix. I guess if on FanDuel, if Allen or Gordon is out, you can go down to Patrick Williams. I guess if Allen's out, you can go down to Patrick Williams, which isn't too bad. If Gordon is out, you're in a little bit of a worse position. I guess, yeah, you're probably just going to Josh Okogie. I'm just going to assume these guys are in. I'm probably going to get a sprinkle of them and just swap down to whoever is taking their place if they are out. Getting a little bit more on the Chicago side than the Phoenix side, though.
Talk about the Bulls.
Yeah, so getting some Patrick Williams. He started last game, so he's in play. DeMar DeRozan, not getting a ton of them like some of the other teams, but I think they're definitely playable. Like DeMar DeRozan's a guy that if he can put up the points, so he's appropriately priced and has some upside. So I think you can definitely go there. I don't know that you need to run it back with a Phoenix piece, but it'll be interesting to see. I maybe don't mind the idea of throwing in a few game stacks from this game in a 150 lineup set. And then if you're getting some Phoenix guys being out that you weren't necessarily expecting, maybe it lets you like upgrade a little bit to get some lower owned pieces that end up being really good values by the end of the night that we didn't know about at the beginning of the night. But not a game I'm going to have a ton of, but I think you can go there if you want to.
I understand why the ownership's low, but it is really low on guys like Durant and Booker. Basically 1% is the current projection. And we know they have upside, right? We saw Booker drop 60 the other day. Was it a 60? I think it was 60, right? Actual points in the bucket. Am I wrong in saying that? It was a lot of points. So like these things can happen. Chicago, not a matchup we're necessarily afraid of either. I mean, it just feels like a smaller slate than 7 games. Are you getting that read as well?
Yeah, there's just some games with some low totals. And we're seeing this. Like, if the game has a low total and a couple of guys are out, then the game's in play. Some of these are low totals and, like, there's nobody out. Like, looking at, like, Cleveland. Like, well, nobody's out. So the game's got a, 215, 216 total. Like, Milwaukee-Detroit has a 247 total. So, like, I'm going to be going to that Milwaukee-Detroit game before I get to Cleveland. And really to Orlando even. The San Antonio Philadelphia game has a 237 total. Like the Charlotte Minnesota game has a 220 total. So like if Anthony Edwards is out, we know Mike Conley is out. If Anthony Edwards is out, then suddenly even with the 220 total, I've got some interest, but I just don't have any interest in the Charlotte side, right? Like they're on the other end of that 12-point spread. and only a 220 total, probably not something I want to have a bunch of pieces of.
Should mention that Karis LeVert officially questionable for Cleveland. If he doesn't go, like a guy like Sam Merrill can be interesting. He's a guy who would get elevated a little bit. Our if then and him would have him at 29 DK fantasy points as a projection and 28 FanDuel in 30 minutes. Struce not as good, but he's a little too expensive still. Certainly you can play some, but he's not been in good form. Another way of saying that about him, he's just not been spectacular of late. Maybe they played him too many minutes earlier in the year. Maybe he's not as good as they want him to be. But just kind of note that as far as the injury there to Karis LeVert, is that a 7:00 game? We'll know that, right? I'll be at 7:00, correct? Cleveland, yeah. Cleveland or Orlando 7:00. So we'll know that. If we don't know that, Crunch Time will know that, and they'll talk about it going forward. Is there a player? Is there like a team or like a game in general that you're afraid of not having enough of, and it's just going to blow up all your lineups?
I don't think so. I think that the game I'm going to have the most of is the Memphis-Toronto game. Are you talking like specifically of the 7:00 games?
By the way, Anthony Edwards officially in. So there you go. Whatever sort of your Troy Brown dreams, I know you didn't have any, but if you did, anybody out there listening, have been crushed. Anthony
now
Edwards,
we know we can fire up the Perk and Cork mods without the opportunity cost of Troy Brown.
Man, I can't believe it. I mean, that's not completely insane. I think I'm going to play some Furkan. You've talked me into it, and they're really thin. They're very thin today, Philadelphia. But oh boy, I'm sorry, I cut you off. You're in the middle of saying something else. You're talking about the prospect of like not having a certain player or a certain team, and you didn't really have an answer for that. There's not one player that you're like afraid of. Like, oh man, if I don't have this player, it's just going to blow up my game.
I would say actually that the Milwaukee-Detroit game is maybe a game that's going to be a little bit underowned. And like, so maybe of the top tier, I know I had said like Embiid was my favorite. I'm probably going to have like a lot, pretty good amount of Embiid on DraftKings in particular. But like, that's like the Milwaukee-Detroit game. If that game is close, like they just put up like 270 something points. And like, we keep looking at these game logs. I was looking at the game logs for the guys, for the Detroit players. Like, man, everybody looks good. Like, I didn't realize Alec Burks had put up this many points. So, well, yeah, they just played a 270-point game. So if this game is closer than the spread indicates, this could be a tournament-winning game, like right out of the gate there. So I wouldn't like, especially now that we know like Anthony Edwards is in, that's gives us a little bit of a key to like where we could be getting some value. So that's probably the game that I'm most afraid of being underweight on.
Your second favorite Piston? I know you talked about Ivy. Who's your second favorite Piston?
Probably Jalen Duren, but I don't think I think I want to be under the field. Maybe Alec Burks.
Yeah, I didn't want it to be Burks because I'm thinking about it too. I was like a little bit of a game stack there, and Duren, he could put up those double doubles. Chad has a question here. Derek wants to know DK tournaments 2v2. Santi Aldama, that is somewhat contingent upon Tillman. Aldama and RJ Barrett versus Anderson, that's slow-mo, and Scotty Barnes.
I'd probably go Aldama and Barrett. But yeah, we got to see what happens with Xavier Tillman.
Yeah. What are you rooting for in that news not to drop as far as you're making your lineups? Do you want that to come? You want that to come after 7:00, right? I assume that's the case.
I think so because it's pretty easy to swap down. So like you're really not getting screwed, but some people just won't do it, and like some people are not going to be adjusting it. If Tillman's out, they're probably not going to be getting like enough Aldama or enough Jaren Jackson, and maybe Gregory Jackson probably does become more in play if Tillman's out, like because he's a power forward, I think. So yeah, probably hoping that news comes out afterwards. Although I always root for it to come out ahead of time just so I know, but it's better for me if it comes out afterwards.
Sam Merrill might look a little bit better now because Karis LeVert was officially ruled out. Yeah, that might change some things. I know Crunch Time is knocking on the door. We got Keith, Taylor Smith, Kevin Roth. News is breaking on a Monday night. Karis LeVert out. I'm sure you guys are going to be talking about that to some degree. I know we had an if-then setup as well. Roth, what's up? Welcome. It's Monday. How's it treating you?
Monday's good. Life is good. No complaints. Excited for some NBA action after a full weekend of football.
You gonna watch Luka versus Celtics?
Is it on national TV?
No. I mean, no.
No.
You can't buy League Pass. It's like $200.
I mean, $200 here, you know. We're gonna have to win a tournament here one of these days, Dean. I got to take one down, and then I will splurge on the League Pass.
I know DraftKings gave out League Pass to a lot of the ballers, a lot of the big spenders. I guess you did not. I know you play DraftKings, but maybe you didn't spend enough. I don't know.
Yeah, I play every day.
Are you in the Onyx or no?
Well, I play every day, but apparently playing $1 to $3 a day is not quite considered baller status. So it didn't quite reach the limits.
All right. Well, you can watch the Yahoo Stat Tracker or something like that, and you can watch the dots. And
I have sadly done that so many times, just like watching the ESPN Gamecast of just like who shot and who got the rebound. I should probably just go ahead and buy the freaking package.
I know people that have the package and still watch the dots. I don't know why they enjoy it. They don't even want to watch the game. They just want to watch the dots. But all right, Squirrel, you want to have a player for the people that's going to break the slate? Feel free to be ambitious as you want to be. Who's the player you're going to need? Who's the player you're going to have more than the field of? The player that's going to help you take down some GPP tournaments tonight. What do you got for the people?
Right now, I'm thinking Emmanuel quickly. If we really want like a potential slate buster, though, I still think it's Giannis.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Furkan Korkmaz. I thought you were like getting the Furkan.
You're setting me up.
All right. Myself and Squirrel, we do appreciate y'all watching the first portion here. Now we yield to the FanDuel sponsor Crunch Time. You got Taylor Smith, you got Keith Eyster, you got Kevin Roth holding it down. Roth, take it away.
Good stuff. As always, welcome to it, ladies and gents. It's Crunch Time. This show is sponsored by FanDuel. We're going to take you up to lock. We're going to take you through lock. We're going to give you some plays, FanDuel, DK. We're going to take your questions. And, of course, we're going to keep up to date on all the news that is breaking. And we are joined by two of the sharpest minds in the biz. We got Keith Eyster, a.k.a. the Iceman in the house. What up, Ice?
Not too much. Fun little slate here. Little bit of injury news, some more uncomfortable value, like these names that we talk about day after day, slate after slate. Just they're never fun. But we do have some injury news that's opening up some playable guys. So there are some things to do in tournaments. So try to get away from some of this chalk, I think.
Very nice. And I'm seeing you are rocking the new colors, the new RG branding up there with the hat and the shirt. Is that the hoodie?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, that is looking sharp.
Super
man.
sharp. Yeah.
I did just have mine right next to me, so I might as well pop this bad boy on for a bit. We got Taylor in the house as well. What up, Taylor?
Not much. Little bummed I apparently didn't get the memo about the new stuff. Gonna have to badger Meansy about that.
You missed the swag drop? Ooh,
apparently
that's
I'm not
sign.
high enough on the totem pole.
Yeah,
yet,
that means they're gonna give you a call in about a week and be like, "Bad news, sorry, but
we ran out." Yeah.
We'll make sure you get the swag drop going as well. Oh boy, that's a rough scene after we take it off. Taylor, how are you feeling about the slate?
Not bad. It's like Keith said, some ugly value, but at this point, value is value. So everyone's dealing with the same slate, so it could be worse.
That's what I like to hear. All right, well, let's dive into it. Taylor, you want to give me a kind of breakdown of what has happened and what we're looking forward to happening here? Or just, give me like a 60-second breakdown.
Yeah, we've gotten most of the big news. The only Q tags left that matter are Xavier Tillman, and then a couple of Suns, Eric Gordon and Grayson Allen, are both questionable. Not the biggest news with the Suns since they have their stars in, but we did get news Anthony Edwards will play. Mike Conley's out, though, which opens up value for Minnesota in a good matchup against the Hornets. Karis LeVert out, Zach LaVine, Porzingis, Nick Richards doubtful. The Sixers and the Grizzlies are still shorthanded a little bit, so plenty going on.
Okay. I will let it be known you are not alone in the lack of swag. We got Kirkwood in the chat. He is also hatless. He has not gotten the swag. And I think Tasteful Tides as well. Hoping to get the swag. We got to get on it. I don't know how you guys missed the memo, but the swag is out. I still got the fresh.
Tides has been clamoring for swag for it feels like 2 years now.
It's like
can't seem to get his hands on some.
It's a bit at this point. He's just begging for the swag. We'll make it happen, guys. Let's dive into this slate here. I guess we'll start on FanDuel Cash as we usually do. Taylor, why don't you walk me through a build?
Sounds good. So Noto on core plays today. His core plays are Jaren Jackson and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. both of whom are popping into 100% of the first 150 optimals over here. Jackson, again, with Memphis shorthanded, gets all the usage for them. An advantageous spot against the Raptors, who do not have much size with Pirtle and Siakam gone. Alexander Walker, we think, will start for Conley. He's 4,400 on FanDuel. Better value on DK, but because cheap value is hard to come by on FanDuel, he's still popping a lot, even at 4,400 at shooting guard, small forward. So those are the staples of your cash lineup over here. Point guards to consider. Looks like kind of a pay-up spot on this slate. Maxey, Damian Lillard are popping into some lineups here. The Bucks have a good matchup against Detroit. Philly has a good matchup against San Antonio. Makes sense for both of them in the upper echelon. Emmanuel Quickley against Memphis for 7,300. He's getting lots more usage with Toronto than he did for New York. He's a decent value for the minutes he's playing on this team. Jaden Ivey for Detroit with Cade Cunningham out leads the team in usage in these situations. Minutes have been up lately too. So he looks like a good cash play. Good tournament play against Milwaukee, who's not been a good defensive team this season. I think that really does it for point guard. I suppose you could punt Jordan McLaughlin and hope for the best, but presuming he comes off the bench, not the safest play in the world for Minnesota. Moving to shooting guard, Chris Middleton's another one you can consider against the Pistons, 7K flat. No more minutes issues for him. He's been playing full minutes of late, and the matchup is about as good as it gets. Luke Kennard, another one for Memphis, who's playing a lot of minutes, essentially playing point guard for them. So not the greatest per minute guy, kind of just a spot up three-point shooter, reliant on his shots falling, but decent enough spot for them against Toronto, who's not been nearly as good defensively since their trades. Small forward, John Conchar, another value from Memphis, started the last couple games. He's getting like no usage, but again, he's 4,100 and starting, and cheap guys are not easy to find these days. RJ Barrett, Tobias Harris, a couple guys around 7K that look decent that can fill your small forward spot. Tobias is the one popping a little more against the Spurs. He's like the third option on offense, though. So I don't love it. I think I do slightly prefer Barrett, even with the lack of power forward eligibility. I think Barrett's a slightly safer play there. And power forward, Patrick Williams and Jaden McDaniels are a couple of value guys. Williams starting with Levine out. He's got a path to 30-ish minutes for the Bulls. McDaniels is really just a price play. Big minute role for the Timberwolves as a cheapie. And at center, it's Jaren Jackson popping into all of them. Center-only guys, Xavier Tillman and Rudy Gobert look decent. And Al Horford is playable with Porzingis out. We're expecting him to start at center for Boston.
Okay, very good. Ice, let's talk tournaments here. What is your game plan? And then if you want, you could walk through a build, but I'd like to know your overall strategy as well.
Yeah, so overall, I think you have to start with this kind of cheap value talk and figure out how you're playing that. Nickeil Alexander-Walker has a massive ownership projection. He feels like the safest guy of the bunch, so I definitely don't disagree that he will be the highest owned. It's not an uncomfortable play, but like a guy that's that cheap and going to be out there for 30 minutes in a fast-paced game with Charlotte, who doesn't play any defense at all. Like, I get it. It doesn't feel comfortable. I'm finding it hardest to get away from Alexander Walker, though. Mm-hmm. I think so. I'll just kind of break down each situation. Memphis is going to be another team where you're seeing a lot of value plays. They're just super shorthanded, and Xavier Tillman remains questionable, so there could be even more value opening up on Memphis. It's John Conchar and Luke Kennard as the guys who seem to be picking up the most ownership. Like guys like Santi Aldama, David Roddy, we've seen Zaire Williams even. We have seen like their rotation change around quite a bit. Some of those names are going to become popular if Tillman ultimately does end up getting ruled out. But I would not be afraid to go away from the ownership on Memphis with even other guys within the Memphis rotation, like Aldama and Roddy. And that's even if Tillman is in. If Tillman gets ruled out, then I think those guys are going to be just as strong as some of the Minnesota plays.
Who's your favorite play if Tillman is out? What's your favorite play, and where does that rank in the hierarchy of things at that point?
So Aldama is the guy who jumped in the starting lineup for Tillman last time. And I believe he played like 30 minutes, trying to pull that up right now. If I can get the game log to load here. Let's see, what day was that? Yeah, 27 minutes. It looks like he got in the last game. So he's going to be a strong value. Like the Toronto guys are still going to grade out just as well. A lot of them are in the 6K range. There really isn't anything super cheap. Zaire Williams maybe is the 4K value that might pop up a little bit. Could see him play mid-20s minutes in that situation. David Roddy also has been backing up the 5 a little bit with Tillman out. He's only 4,800 on FanDuel. So Aldama being priced up a little bit probably keeps him in the same tier as like the Toronto guys, where like a David Roddy might be a solid pivot off of the cheap Minnesota stuff.
Gotcha. Okay.
Let's see here. That's really all I got from the value standpoint. The Sixers are really short-handed. Nobody's really popping over here on FanDuel. Squirrel was talking about Korkmaz as a deep tournament play. Like I don't think that's out of left field at all. I think it's very viable. A massive spread in this. I just don't see any way San Antonio keeps this game close. So you can look at guys like Korkmaz for blowout run. I think you could put Danwell House, KJ Martin, those type of guys into this conversation as well. It's not as comfortable as a guy that is going to be out there for 30 minutes, but like we're just looking for a way to get off of super chalky guys who all we really need is like 20, 25 points out of them, and they're going to be useful so that we can get up to some of the good stuff on the slate.
Okay, very good. Any other names you want to toss out here? You want to hold off a position by position until we get to DK?
Yeah, let's go ahead and hold off. It's going to be a lot of the same names anyway. Talk about several of them, but I'll talk about some of my favorite spend ups when we get over to DK.
Okay, I love it. We should note, by the way, this show sponsored by FanDuel. If you bet $5, you get $150 in bonus bets for new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. If you are in the great state of Vermont, you now have access to the FanDuel Sportsbook as well. Special offer. Bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets on any market. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 and up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's kick it over to DK. I have not started a build, but I am about to right now. So Taylor, let's go through kind of those core plays and then what you like at every position.
Sounds good. So the Levert news that we got a little bit before the show started impacts the build quite a bit because Sam Merrill's now popping into every lineup that I try to generate over here. He is not starting, I believe, but still has a path to pretty big minutes off the bench. 4,800 shooting guard only. Pretty easy cash play. He's been a decent source of value in these situations before. Shooting dependent. So if he's going to be really popular, then that's certainly something to note for tournaments. But for cash games, not a big deal at all. Let's see. Otherwise, we're looking at... So Joel Embiid is cheaper on DK than he is on FanDuel. They're playing San Antonio. Again, like he said, there's a pretty good chance this game gets out of hand, but we've seen on numerous occasions Embiid just still get there, even without a full allotment of minutes. He's so good per minute. San Antonio offers very little resistance inside, even with Wemby in there. I think he's a pretty easy kind of core spend for cash. In tournaments, of course, you can pivot to Giannis or Luka, also on the slate, but for cash, I think Embiid's kind of the building block that kind of anchors your lineups at center. Point guard plays are going to look a lot like the ones that we had on FanDuel. Jaden Ivey, Emmanuel Quickley headlining the list. Derek White is decently cheap still for the Celtics at 6'7" against the Mavs. Good matchup for them. Even on the second half of a back-to-back, he gets more usage with Porzingis out. So I think he is in play for cash. Kennard again over here, either guard spot eligible. Doesn't look quite as necessary now that we have Merrill. I think Merrill is a little bit better for the savings, but Kennard's still viable if you want to go that route. Shooting guard, Alexander Walker. You can play here. You can play him at small forward. He's only 3,500. Should start for Conley. Cash lock on DK here. Jaden Ivey again. Derek White again. RJ Barrett is guard eligible on DK, which is not the case on FanDuel. think he slots nicely into a cash build in the 7K range with more usage for the Raptors. Conchar, another guard forward option you can play. Alexander Walker makes Conchar not a must, but if you want to kind of do a more Starsy and Scrubsy kind of build, I think Conchar is okay for that. Alec Burks is kind of getting some steam. He had a monster game in the last game. He had like 14 3-point attempts or something against the same opponent. Seems like a little bit of a chase, but he is still cheap. Obviously still gets usage for Detroit with Cade Cunningham out. And power forward Kyle Anderson is under 4K on DK. Should see a minutes uptick with Conley out. Edwards being out would have made him close to a lock, but he's still getting into most lineups just because he is so cheap. This is another game with blowout risk in Minnesota's favor against Charlotte, but he's a candidate to see maybe a little garbage time run potentially off the bench for Minnesota. Jaren Jackson, just like on FanDuel, he's 7-9 on DK. Tons of usage with Memphis out. So many of their regulars here against the Raptors. Patrick Williams, Naz Reid, a couple more kind of mid-range value forwards to consider for cash in decent roles. And at center, like I said, Embiid, Jaren Jackson is here. Xavier Tillman, I like a lot if he plays. He had like 35 minutes in the starting role 2 games ago, last one he played. So if he's in, he's a good cash play against Toronto. If he's out, like Keith was saying, Aldama, it's probably the guy you just slot in there as an easy 1-for-1 swap.
Okay. Very good. Ice, let's bring you back in here, talk some DK tournaments, and walk me through position by position.
Okay, I do want to talk a little bit more about Minnesota. I didn't mean to, I kind of feel like I skipped over them a little bit. Jason's question in chat about Jordan McLaughlin, and then Taylor just touched on a couple of names as well. Naz Reid and Jaden McDaniels are 3 guys who I think are awesome pivots today. I just wanted to make sure that I highlighted those. Feel like I talked about Memphis and Philadelphia a little bit, but Minnesota is actually my favorite place to try to get different. And it's Naz Reid, Jordan McLaughlin, and Jaden McDaniels. McDaniels is going to be out there for 30 minutes also. If he ends up outscoring like then like that's all you're looking for. Just one more point from Jaden McDaniels over Nickeil Alexander-Walker gets you ahead of quite a bit of the field. Jordan McLaughlin, like this game gets out of hand. McLaughlin ends up playing 22 minutes. He's actually a far better per minute producer than Nickeil Alexander-Walker is. So like, if you're fading Alexander Walker, I would certainly be playing Jordan McLaughlin. I feel like a blowout and not losing run in that situation is the most likely path to him failing tonight.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, let's go position by position and let me know what you're thinking here build-wise.
All right. So at the point guard position, Jaden Ivey is way too cheap for his role. He's been awesome without Cade Cunningham. And the matchup is outstanding. Milwaukee plays really fast. I believe they're 4th in the NBA. And they have actually really struggled on the defensive end. It hasn't gotten better all season long. They're still in like the mid-20s as far as defensive rating on the season. So I know he's popular tonight, but I think this is a fantastic spot for Jaden Ivey. And if this game is going to stay close, like Damian Lillard is one of my absolute favorite spends on the entire slate. We just saw him drop 45 points on this Detroit team. So it feels a little bit like chasing, but it's an awesome matchup. Fast-paced game. Like he's much easier to fit in than Giannis, who's a couple thousand more. So that savings down to Dame, I'm very interested in that. Running it back with a couple of Pistons is definitely what I want to do, because if it gets out of hand, he probably doesn't get there. But this game just went nuts. I'm running it back, hoping for a very similar outcome. Dame went off for like 75 DK points in that game. You don't even need that type of score. I mean, just 60 in this spot would be more than enough. So I think Dame's in an awesome spot. Derek White, a guy who looks pretty good. No Porzingis. He gets a nice usage bump without Porzingis on the floor. Kobe White, a guy for the Bulls who's had a pretty decent role. That Phoenix Chicago game, I don't think anybody's playing much of anything there. Another like Grayson Allen and Eric Gordon are still questionable as well. So Josh Okogie, another guy who could potentially be a value play that opens up, but like Devin Booker has a massive ceiling. Nobody's playing Booker. If you're playing more than one lineup, I think you should probably grab at least one share of Devin Booker, just solely for the ceiling. Bradley Beal is also a guy who's still kind of underpriced, has been playing really well. So Beal is another pivot that I love in that late game. Let me see. RJ Barrett for Toronto has a nice price. That role is really good there. Chris Middleton in the game, one of my favorite game environments of the slate is Milwaukee Detroit. Nobody's playing Middleton. I certainly think he's viable if you can't get up to Dame or Giannis. Alec Burks is a guy who's went nuts off of the bench for Detroit a couple of times. He's actually a big reason why that game stayed close over the weekend. He's 5,400, so not a comfortable click, but we've definitely seen him get hot shooting. So Alec Burks is definitely in play. Let's see here. We talked about a lot of the value stuff already. Conchar, Merrill is outstanding value. We've seen him do well in this role before. Moving it on to a couple of forwards here. Jaren Jackson is another popular play, but I want to be well over the field on him. He has had a massive usage rate without Desmond Bane and John Morant in the lineup. We're talking like 35% awesome. Good matchup against Toronto, who has really went downhill defensively since they traded away OG Anunoby, and now they have traded away Pascal Siakam as well. Jakob Poeltl is hurt. Triple J should be able to do pretty much whatever he wants today. So definitely want to be over the field on him. Always an uncomfortable guy to be overweight on because of the foul trouble stuff, but it's too good of a matchup to stay away from him. DeRozan, another guy in that late game that I don't think a ton of people are playing. We're showing significant ownership. I think he probably comes in slightly under that. He's cheap, no Levine. I just feel like that game's going to get kind of forgotten about, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him come in a little bit lower than we have him projected. Mentioned RJ Barrett already as somebody I really like. Vince Williams for Memphis, really shorthanded. I like him a good amount. Patrick Williams, a solid value play for the Bulls. Bruce Brown is a little bit interesting for me. Like, I'm playing a ton of this Toronto-Memphis game. New to the team, obviously. We don't for sure know what his role is going to be. 5,100, I don't mind taking some shots, hoping that he finds a little bit of extra ownership there. He does a little bit of everything while he's out there. It's just whether he can get the minutes or not is kind of the thing. And then at the center position, let's see here. Rudy Gobert is one of my absolute favorite plays on the entire slate. I want to be at least 3x the field on Rudy Gobert. Charlotte is already an outstanding matchup for big men. Mark Williams has been out for a long time. Nick Richards is doubtful. Like, there's nobody that's going to stop Gobert from grabbing 15 to 20 rebounds in this spot. I think he can just absolutely go nuts. If it's not Gobert, it's probably Karl Anthony Towns. So I do like him a good amount as a decent pivot away from Gobert. I would not play them together. I just don't think the game stays close long enough for both of them to smash. But I certainly think that one of them will smash in this spot. Xavier Tillman with the Q tag all day. I think he's a fantastic tournament play. A guy who's been really tough to peg his minutes. He's been in and out of the rotation. They're so short-handed now that you have to think that if he's active, he's going to be out there a ton. So 5,300 for Xavier Tillman against a Toronto team who is really short on big men as well. They've been running Thaddeus Young and Jonte Porter at the 5 with Poeltl hurt, Siakam gone. So Tillman has an outstanding matchup if he does indeed suit up. If he misses, then that's why we're talking about guys like Santi Aldama and David Roddy as well. Naz Reid, a guy we've talked about already, absolutely love him today. Brook Lopez, an interesting pivot. Just trying to get more exposure to that Milwaukee Detroit game. Can't get up to Giannis or Dame in every single lineup. So these secondary or tertiary bucks, I think, are solid tournament plays also.
Okay. I've got a name, and it's a guy that I've been avoiding for a long time, but I think I'm back here. Wemby. I'm looking at his minutes limits here, and he was at a 24-minute limit. And then lately it was, I think, 27 and 27 and 28. And this, according to Greg Popovich before last game, said he is still on a minutes restriction, but it will probably change very soon. That was before last game. Is there any news that I missed here? Is he still officially on it, or do we not know?
I mean, it's Popovich, who is one of the hardest coaches in the NBA to trust. He loves to mess with his rotations. I think you're asking, is Wemby going to play 32 minutes tonight?
That's what I'm asking. Is Wemby going to get 32 minutes? Can it be the time?
I think it's worth gambling on that in this situation. Just like nobody's playing him today.
Mm-hmm.
If I would definitely run it back with Maxey or Embiid in that situation.
Already did. Yep.
Because like if this game stays close,
stay
one
close.
of those two is going nuclear.
Yeah.
And Wemby is as good of a bet as anybody on that team to keep it close. We've also seen him go for like 50 fantasy points in his 25 minutes. So
right.
I don't hate that call at all.
Okay. All right. Well, we're playing a little Wemby tonight, boys. We're going to do it. All right. Hey, we've got about 15 minutes before lock. Taylor, is there anything that you want to add? If not, I will dive into some QQs.
I do want to add that Merrill is still definitely playable on FanDuel for 5-1. I don't think I mentioned him. I don't think projections were updated by then, but now that they have, he is certainly a very cash viable shooting guard on FanDuel.
Okay. Mr. Richard said Booker less than 1% on DK. Got to take a shot. And Ice, you were mentioning that like the ceiling on Book is 50 real points or more. I think he scored like 60 plus real points before, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just amazing ceiling. It's a slow paced game. Like Chicago plays at one of the slowest paces in the league, but like that's why he's so low owned.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Let's dive into some QQs. I'm of course starting with the RG Discord because that is where the cool kids hang out. I'll start here on a FanDuel GPP question. Ice, Philly short in the backcourt. Squirrel mentioned frickin' Korkmaz at Stone Cold Min. I didn't realize that to get some run. That would open things up a little bit. He could then get a star. Your interest there?
Yeah, I do think it's viable. He needs to get hot shooting, and I don't know how many shots are going to be available to him with Embiid and Maxey, even Tobias and Oubre. Like he's way down the list, but he is safe in a blowout as well. So this game gets out of hand. He's already he's projected right now for the backup point guard role. They're so shorthanded at guard, was mentioned. That he already has a role, but they're shorthanded enough where if this game blows out, like he's probably staying on the floor. So like you're hoping for like 24 minutes in that spot. And I think it's viable at minimum price. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Right back to you here in a DK GPP, Brook Lopez or Horford?
Give me Brook Lopez.
Okay. Sean said, did Ice go position by position on FanDuel or am I going crazy? He did not. We saved it for DK, but you said it was kind of similar names.
Yeah, I mean, the value plays are all the same. Like, there's some slight pricing differences. Like, Konchar's a better value on FanDuel, where Kennard is a better value on DK. But, like, it's all the same name, same situation. So,
okay, great. FanDuel cash question. Taylor, bringing you into the mix. Tobias and Luka or Embiid and Ivy?
Second one for me. We got Xavier Tillman in, by the way.
Okay. Ice, what's your exposure to Xavier Tillman now that you know that he is in?
Let's see here. I have him in 6 out of 20.
Okay, yeah, it's pretty solid ownership there. FanDuel GPP, Ice, your favorite stud and or studs? Who do you like?
My favorite stud, like I'm mostly avoiding the very top tier. Like Embiid's an awesome play. If the game stays close, that's probably going to hurt. But I'm a little bit under the field on Embiid. I am not getting to Luka or Giannis, which is always scary. I actually am starting. My favorite is Damian Lillard at 9,200, and it's just for that slight savings. I get to kind of eliminate one of these uncomfortable value plays by saving a couple of grand there and living more in the mid range. I also absolutely love Jaren Jackson Jr. So those are my top two like spend up type options, and neither of them are full spends.
Very good. You could also do Wemby.
Wemby is also
all right.
play.
DK GPP, Bojan or V Williams and Ice?
I didn't talk about Bojan as much, but I do think he's really interesting. It's my favorite game environment. Vince Williams has been really good also. Memphis is just, they don't have anyone to produce, and he's been doing quite a bit of that producing. So I do like both of them a lot. It's a slight lean to Bojan for me, just for the ownership discount.
Okay, great. Ball says DK Cash, Taylor, you want Reed and Barnes or Ivy and White?
Reed and Barnes or Ivy and White? I think Ivy and White. But I did want to bring up Scotty Barnes as what I think is a really good tournament play that wasn't projecting for a lot of ownership before, kind of around 8K.
Okay. Wendy in the chat says Sam Merrill viable on DK. And yes, we both mentioned viable value there. Let's see what else we got. Make sure you hit that thumbs up for us, as you can see there on the bottom. Knox, here's a guy that I've seen a lot of questions about. Knox is really popping on FanDuel. Is he okay FanDuel cash as a last piece? And I would like both of your takes on Knox, please. Taylor, you can start.
My initial take on Knox was that it sounds bad, but he is projected for 20 minutes. But I don't know. He doesn't project really well. He's only projected for like 13 FanDuel points. So ideally, no.
Okay. Ice?
Yeah, I'm not interested either. I'm trying to see. Yeah, 25 minutes. Like, could he play 30 minutes? I suppose with him starting, but I don't know. He's really low per minute sometimes. Like he randomly has these games where he spikes a little bit, but overall, for the most part, he's low per minute.
Yeah. Okay. I got a couple people asking about Niang. Was that a name that y'all mentioned? Maybe I missed it.
I think he's viable. More of a tournament play for sure. I don't think he's cash viable. So like with LeVert out, there are more bench minutes to go around. He is a guy who could pop up there. It's not a great game environment. Tough matchup against Orlando, but like 26 minutes wouldn't surprise me.
Okay, great. More questions coming in here. Where are we at? FanDuel cash question, Taylor. Dame or Maxey straight up?
Slight lean Dame, but both look good. They're both like number 2 options that are really high-end number 2 options. Yeah, I think you're fine either way.
Okay. FanDuel GPP question, Ice from Sean. You want Reed or Tillman at center in a FanDuel GPP?
Tillman for sure.
Okay. Another GPP question on DK. Ice, quickly Barrett or Booker Knox? And it could be, you could put Conchar in there instead of Knox if you want. Booker Conchar if you prefer that.
I will go the Booker Conchar side.
Okay, great. Gray Bill says, is Champagny viable since he's starting for the Spurs as a pivot off of some of this cheaper chalk? On FanDuel, he's 4,600. Does that work for a GPP, Ice?
No, like he starts, but then he plays like 20 minutes. So like very similar to the Knox situation. Like he's going to be out there to start the game. I'm just not confident he's going to get like typical starters run.
Okay. A few more GPP questions, but Taylor, we're going to get you in the mix as well. This is a 3v3 from Fluff. You want Gobert quickly and Barrett or Luka Conchar and Tillman?
I think the second one probably has more upside. If you wanted to pivot from the Knox kind of guys, maybe you could look at Joe Ingles or Anthony Black in the 4K range. Like that game is awful, but they're both projected for 20-ish minutes and maybe have a little more payout potential.
Okay. FanDuel GPP, Ice, D Wade or Jay McDaniels in a FanDuel GPP?
McDaniels for me.
All right, jumping into the YouTube chat here. Make sure you're hitting us with that thumbs up. DK Cash question. You want Cole Anthony or Pat Will?
Pat Will.
Okay. Any love for Wendell Carter at 5,400? I think I heard his name mentioned. Ice, any love for Wendell Carter at 5,400?
I didn't mention him because it's a really tough matchup. He did start and just out of we knew this was going to happen. Like he'd been playing 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 24 minutes. And eventually we knew it was coming. Spike game, 34 minutes against Miami. Does that continue? It's a back-to-back. That was yesterday. So he's on a back-to-back in one of the tough matchups for big men in the league. So I'm avoiding him today, but I don't think it's crazy at all.
Was that minutes limited by injury? Like, was he returning from an injury?
He was returning from an injury, yes.
And so now, because it's a back-to-back, you don't know if they're going to pump his minutes up again. But
right.
For a tournament, not
right.
Crazy, right?
If it was a better matchup, I'd be all over it. It would be one of my favorite plays on the slate. But because it's Cleveland, I don't think I'm taking chances on it today.
Gotcha. Okay. What about Jonte Porter for Toronto, Ice? Got to need Jonte?
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I keep trying it. It hasn't worked at all. He keeps getting into foul trouble. Toronto's really shorthanded. So there's a game where he could play 26, 28 minutes and really do okay in that. This game against Memphis, who's really shorthanded, is as good a shot as any, or as good a time as any to take some shots.
Gotcha. Okay. Larry says, Taylor, you want Beal or Middleton on FanDuel?
I think Middleton's a little safer.
Okay. Right back to you here, Taylor. Last piece in the util on Yahoo, Keegan Murray or Vince Williams. They're both $22 on Yahoo.
Keegan Murray, I think, has a good matchup against Atlanta, so Keegan Murray.
Okay, I'm scrolling down a little bit here. What else do we have here? Okay, Mr. Irrelevant says, Ice, I've got $6,900 left in the guard spot on DK. It's a large field tournament. I want a high upside guy who also has a high floor. Don't we all want that? What are your thoughts? He says, everyone above 3,500 is available. So I don't really know what that part means, but he's got 6,900. He wants basically the best play is what it sounds like he wants.
I mean, Barrett is really solid. Quickly is really solid. Jaden Ivey is the answer for like best play at 6,700.
Okay, great. James Johnson says, DK cash question, Taylor Tillman or PJ Washington?
Tillman for me.
Excellent. We've got 4 minutes until lock. DK GPP from Raj. Merrill or Burks? Ice, you want Merrill or Burks?
I prefer Merrill, even though I like the Burks game environment better.
Okay. John Tom, DK GPP, you want your boy Gobbert or Towns or flip a coin, Ice?
Flip a coin in general, but I do have a lean for Gobert. I think it's an awesome rebounding spot, so that gives the edge to Gobert for me.
Okay. JB says, DK, Taylor, Thor with Cody Martin out?
Thor. JT Thor.
That's a real person?
Yeah, it's an amazing name.
If only he produced fantasy points.
Yeah.
Like Thor might sound like he should.
Right. Yeah. He doesn't really live up to the awesome name, but yeah, I don't think you can do that. Did you say cash? I don't think
he didn't say. I assume it would be a tournament play.
I mean, I'm sure price is a consideration, but I'd much rather get to Nick Smith Jr. than Thor in that situation. 3,800.
Okay. All right. Let's see. On FanDuel, Cat or Brolo? Ice, you want Cat or Brolo?
Give me Cat there.
And then I'll come back to you here. Cat or Jaren Jackson? I feel like Triple J is one of your favorite plays of the whole night.
Yeah, he is.
Mm-hmm.
So Triple J.
DK cash question, Taylor. Cole Anthony or P. Will?
Still P. Will. Anthony's cheap, so it's interesting, but I think Williams has the better minutes path.
Okay. We'll go to Brandon Wilcox. Any love for Gary Trent Jr. in a GPP?
Yeah, totally fine with that. Again, if Toronto keeps playing small instead of giving minutes to bigger guys, like he should have 25-ish minutes. And like you need him to shoot well for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. DK cash question from Fit Crooks. Taylor, you want Quickly and P. Will or White and Merrill? These are both good plays, right?
Yeah, slightly in the Quickly side though.
Okay. Seems like he's doing it right either way. FanDuel GPP is a good question, Ice, from Big Melvy. Would you create any rules for Memphis players, excluding certain guys or not pairing certain guys together?
With Tillman in, that's a definite yes. I would not play Tillman and Aldama together. I think that the guard situation is pretty solid. Like, I think Conchar would lose minutes to Gilliard if it were to happen. I think Kennard and Conchar are fine together. So just the one with the big man.
Okay.
We'll go to throw Jackson in that too. No more than one of Tillman, Aldama, Jackson.
Okay. We'll go to Brian's question here, Ice. What is your Quickly and Ivy exposure in DK GPPs? If you don't mind, like I don't want to out you completely, but
Ivy, I'm over the field on, even though he's one of the most popular plays on the slate. Quickly, I am just about even with the field.
Okay, great. Let's see. DK Taylor, Maxi or Mello? He's got 89 hundo.
Probably Maxi for that one.
J Sam says, Roth, can you ask the guys if they have a lean on if Allen and EG, is that Eric Gordon, will play?
Got anything, Taylor?
I always
we're
generally lean toward.
speculating.
Yeah, it's speculative. I would lean toward playing just to be safe, but Eric Gordon's old, so keep that in mind.
Yeah, and it is a back-to-back for them. The problem is, because I looked into that too, like I don't think anybody's paying attention to that, but the problem is, like, you're talking about like Josh Okogie, Keita Bates-Diop, like the guys that replace them. I don't know that it's worth gambling because there's no swaps. It's the last game of the night. Like, you're going to be stuck if you don't get the news. Like, you're probably not getting it before Charlotte, Minnesota at 8. So maybe you have it in time for Boston, Dallas, but there's really nothing to love in that game either. So I couldn't find a way to set myself up for that to be viable.
Gotcha. Should I text him? Eric Gordon and I are boys. Should I just shoot him a text and see?
Yeah.
Eric Gordon, his kids are in the same class as my girls are. So, like, I see him in the hallways at school, at least when it's off season. And it's I'm just like, holy shit, it's Eric Gordon. It's Eric Gordon. What's up, man?
That's awesome.
But I try not to fanboy that hard. Let's see. Oh, we hit the lock. We have done the thing. DK cash question. Oh, might be too late. Big spend, Giannis or Embiid? Taylor.
Embiid for cash.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We got one more question here from Raj. This is a post-lock question. Ice, my 2 spend-ups for tonight are Durant and Barnes. Do you like that for a big DK GPP, or should I pivot to Tatum and any other guard not named Ivy under 7,700?
Durant and Barnes, I'm totally fine with. Booker's the kind of the guy we talked about for ceiling on Phoenix, but like Durant's the same type of play. Tatum was the other part of that equation. I think I would lean. I probably prefer Tatum slightly, and then if he did Tatum over Durant, what was the situation?
It was Durant, Barnes, or should I pivot to Tatum and any other guy not named Ivy under 7,700?
I like playing Durant to get Barnes. I agree with Taylor that Barnes is a super solid tournament play also. So
Okay.
Love that combo.
I thought that my Eric Gordon thing was going to be the best random basketball note. We have one that has definitely topped me. Adult Swim in the chat says Donovan Mitchell is actually dating my ex. He says, I'm happy for her. How hot was your ex? I imagine Donovan Mitchell is anyways, that is random. I'm happy for her too. Congratulations. Wemby, by the way, at 5%. Brandon says he went with the Wemby call. Wemby he's off the minutes limit. He's getting 34 minutes and he's going to smash. Wait. Okay. I don't believe I find this hard to believe that this is this random person's ex-girl. Like, what are the odds that this random person in chat has that ex-girlfriend? I don't know if I'm being trolled. I don't know. We're going to need proof. I'm going to need a photo of you and whoever that was. It says, me and her are both from Philly. I'm going to look that up and I'm going to see if you're lying. So we shall see. We're going to get on out of here after that. So for Ice, for Taylor, for our one, he says, I swear to God, I believe you actually. All right. For Ice, for Taylor, for our wonderful production crew, always working hard behind the scenes. Guys, we appreciate you. We love you. We will catch you tomorrow. You have been crushed.